What are we doing here today, Adam? We're somewhere down on the south coast doing a fun sprint run by a local couple of guys of a local motorcycle club for some sort of motorcycle fun day out festival with a little bit of motorsport. So with that in mind, we decided to support it because our other sport was straight line sprint and drag racing, mainly sprint racing. We've come down with an historic bike from back in 1966, which was in fact sponsored by the then Roots Motor Company, who were having fabulous success with rally against the Mini Coopers back in the 60s. And they decided that they wanted to attempt to put something together to do land world speed record attempts, especially on a three-wheeler. So they commissioned a couple of guys down in South London and give them 3 full-blown rally engines from their work stables, and off they went to build something that would take land speed records, not British but world. Unfortunately, at the end of the story, they didn't do it, but the bike returns to the south of England. It first went to the Ramsgate Sprint in September 1968, and it don't take much working out that it's back in the south of England over 50 years later. I captured it in the mid-90s at Brighton Speed Trials. It had been put together and commissioned by 2 guys. One was a guy called Vic Phillip, and the constructor was an absolute eccentric genius called Mickey Pierce, who designed and made the frame. It passed hands to Jock Phillip, the bugle Scotch gentleman that took it to Brighton, and it failed scrutineering because the steel was coming through the tyres at the back. And he threw a paddy and loaded up and said, "That's it, I've had enough, the bike's for sale, take it off my hands." And I did. That was on the Saturday. By the Monday it was in the workshop. Now, because of his nature, he wouldn't spend no money on it, hence the back tyre. So every year he'd run it once at Brighton Speed Trials, blew it up, went down to Breakers Yard, remember this is back in the 70s, and bought another 75 quid engine, built and put it in ready for the next year. And it ended up as a sort of road going 750 engine rather than the race engine that it was built with. So we sold hundreds of thousands of bits and then set about building it back. We had a break between the mid-90s and mid-2000s, and it got caught in a house fire and was destroyed. And then good friend Andy Forward spent 5 years, hundreds and hundreds of hours getting this back to how nearly it was over 50 years ago. We're back down to what you see actually run again today, very successfully, after not running for many years. For the techies, engine 998 Imp, as used in all the popular road cars. All the boy racers had them in the 60s, but they were highly successful on the international rally scene. They originated as a Coventry Climax, of which there were 2 types. There was a type that we all learned about from the Formula 1 era with the Coventry teams, but there was another one that was lesser known. They were V8 fire pump engines that were used during the war in the London docks for putting out lots of fires when the Blitz was on. Then it was split in half to a 4-cylinder, which was years in front of its time. All aluminium block, overhead cab with timing chain and auto tensioner, undershim buckets in a highly polished cam box. So it had all the ingredients for a race engine, and that's what Roots turned it into, and that's why they wanted the prestige of having land speed records. It's forced induction through a 2-litre capacity Shorrock supercharger. So when the engine starts to turn, it has no choice but to accept the fuel, like it or not. If anything goes wrong, there is a big bang and the whole lot grenades itself. You should actually have a relief valve system on it, and you crank it up to maybe half atmosphere, maybe 1 atmosphere. We're currently running about 7 atmospheres, so we're on the edge. And of course, if it goes bang, thousands of pounds, but that's motorsport.
And it looked to me, as a novice, like a good run, was it?
Yes, we can now start development properly. It exceeded after the 5 years. We were very tentative when we come out this morning. We didn't know what was going to happen. The lads spent all day preparing it yesterday for today. Very tentative runs, but the second one was definitely a success. It certainly did what we hoped it was going to do. It didn't misfire, it changed gear perfectly. It was just great to see it the second time was successful.
Okay, so the last run was a 13 seconds, or just over.
It's about 4 seconds under what it should be.
Yeah. So you think you've beaten that on this next run?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we did, yeah. By how much I don't know, but should be down to about under 10 seconds. It still holds from back in the 60s, the track record at a very famous airfield called Topcliffe. They're running 11.5 seconds over a quarter of a mile there, and that certainly exceeded well over 100 miles an hour. But again, that was on a quarter of a mile. 11 seconds for a quarter, twice the distance that you've seen today, but it was 60 years ago. Now we can start development, putting proper fuel in it. It is only running on avgas, which is like 105 octane aircraft fuel. We'll move on to methanol and then move on to something a little bit more exotic. But that's in years to come. Onwards and upwards to next year. In the meantime, we're looking for very rare quarter-mile venues now. Unfortunately, a lot of them, like a lot of motorsport, is now being closed down due to environmental issues. Unfortunately, the world's against us, but we're going to do what we can and hope that we can get some quarter-mile runs in, probably in the north of England now. Back up to Elvington, back up to York Raceway and Santa Pod.
Are you happy with tonight?
Yeah, I'm a happy buddy. We're all happy buddies today.